When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease Comedy channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Alicent in Season 2 of House of the Dragon and why I feel like her character was more or less assassinated. And I'm not just talking about this from in terms of like what the book character was. I'm talking about it from the show character. So I think that's a big like differential to make here because the book character just is not the same as the show character, and that was just present even in Season 1. That was kind of present because they changed the character from being the stepmother role to just basically they're really good friends and they're of the same age, so very different dynamics, which I actually think was a good thing. But I want to talk about what led to why I think that character has just been ruined at this point, why the character doesn't function anymore, is completely broken. Now, to actually fully understand where I'm coming from, I can't just talk about Season 2. Because I need to talk about everything that the character has led up to getting to the point she is in Season 2 and why that's so detrimental. So we're going to talk about all of that in today's video. But before we do, I wanted to say a massive thank you to my Patreons and members for supporting me on this channel. If you did want to become one, you do get videos as soon as I drop them. So as soon as they go up and they're up on YouTube, you don't have to wait till they're scheduled till like Saturday. If I upload it on a Tuesday into YouTube to be scheduled, you get it early. And then also you get an exclusive video each week. So if you find that interesting, consider that. Let's take a look at the character of Alicent in Season 2. But first, let's talk about her in Season 1. So Alicent in Season 1 is, in my opinion, the second best written character outside of Viserys. And so that's why I think it's so important to talk about this character. And it's not to say that Alicent was a perfectly written character in the first season. She wasn't. She has some issues at the very end of Season 1 that pretty much define her into Season 2. And so there's just two halves of Alicent, but for the most part, Season 1, Alicent is pretty consistent. She's a character that in the first 5 episodes, it's all about the tragic story of her and Rhaenyra's fallout. So it started with them really close, but as Alicent gets pushed into trying to court Viserys and becoming the new queen for her father's ambitions, all that stuff, while also she's quite the opposite of Rhaenyra. It's kind of weird that they start off as really good friends, even though they're complete opposites. Alicent is somebody that basically conforms to the laws and kind of the customs that she's been taught. She is somebody very much like a goody two-shoes type of character. Whereas Rhaenyra is kind of the other type of character. She doesn't fit into being a traditional woman. She doesn't want to get married and have children and all these things and be forced to do all that. She's someone that's very rebellious. She's a dragon rider. She's a very stereotypical type of Targaryen female. A lot of the Targaryen females kind of have the same like layout, that they don't fit into that traditional women role in Westeros. And so right away, those things are going to be what drives the wedge between those two characters. And so we see that kind of play out, right, as Rhaenyra eventually and Alicent kind of more or less break up by the end of episode for a number of reasons. I'm not going to break it all down, but that was all based upon ideas of Rhaenyra and Alicent not trusting each other anymore. They've both broken each other's trust at multiple accounts. And so that paves the way for Alicent to basically make her green dress scene in episode 5, which I have raved over because it's by far my second favorite scene of Season 1. And if it wasn't for Viserys' just badass moment, Alicent would have the number 1. But with that being said, this is basically the fracturing of their relationship. At this point, they should not be able to recover from this. And that's very evident by the way we jump back into the next like generation, or we go take another time skip, and we get to older Rhaenyra, older Alicent, both of them having kids now. They've grown up. They are very different people, and they also aren't even communicating to each other anymore. So that's kind of the point of it. You come back to the character of Alicent, and she is someone that still does not like Rhaenyra. She has basically been thwarting Rhaenyra almost at every single turn. She has been furthering her own family's interests up to this point, it seems like. That's what we kind of learned from episode 5 to episode 6. And, you know, she's basically trying to show Viserys that Rhaenyra's sons are bastards based on the idea that Alicent is someone that always tries to follow the rules, and she's jealous of Rhaenyra because she kind of gets to live out a life of choosing her partner was, well, until it was forced upon her. And Alicent can't get away with those things, but because Rhaenyra is a Targaryen and she's the heir to the throne, she gets away with all these things. And so it just, again, continues that bitterness and hatred towards each other. And that basically goes down into their children. And so that's literally what the whole second half of the show is about in season 1. And Alicent goes so far as to really, I think the climax of season 1 is episode 8. I don't think it's really episode 9. I think it's episode 8. But the climax is really, the whole idea is Alicent is trying to more or less take away legitimacy and the rights of Rhaenyra's children by having Vaemond, come after Corlys. That's what that entire episode is based upon, that premise. And so she's trying to not only show that Rhaenyra is illegitimate because she has all these bastards, she cannot be trusted to rule the throne if she can't even rule her lusts over going with other men and things like that. And so their hatred goes that far towards each other, right? That they're not even on speaking terms. Rhaenyra literally moves out of King's Landing to Dragonstone because of how bad that hatred is towards each other and how Rhaenyra feels so backed into a corner because Alicent has turned the entire court against her. And so she feels pretty backed down because she is sleeping with Harwin. Her sons are bastards. She's trying to escape that. And so when you get to the end of season 1 and you come to this idea where Alicent is, again, the feast scene is really weird because now that we see how season 2 plays out, it definitely was supposed to be one of those things where Alicent was, willing to forgive Rhaenyra and was willing to just back down and let Rhaenyra be the queen off of basically just one little conversation and speech thing. I always found it weird because when I first watched the episode, I thought all that was just a front just to kind of make Viserys happy. And then because the tensity goes right back up to 100 as soon as Viserys leaves. That's not the case. And so this is kind of where the beginning of, I think, Alicent's kind of destruction of her character begins. It kind of goes back to season 1. And I didn't think it was that huge of a deal because I thought, okay, well, Rhaenyra and Alicent will be apart and they'll kind of grow to then hate each other more. And this is where we kind of get into season 2. So because Alicent puts Aegon on the throne because of hearing Aegon's name, because of the dream that Viserys is talking about on his deathbed, which I still talked about, it's kind of like confirmation biased. Alicent's hearing what she wants to hear. She already wanted to put Aegon on the throne, but she just needed some confirmation. Because that's one of the big whole things of episodes 6, 7, and 8 is Alicent preparing Aegon to rule and forcing him into that. She's the one that forces him to become the king by the time the next episode rolls over. So when you have the next season come, and Alicent is a character that she starts the season kind of in a place where it's how do we fix the situation that's going on, right? She doesn't want this all-out war to happen. She wants kind of patience. She doesn't really want to kill Rhaenyra. She's trying to apologize for Luke's death. And all of that kind of makes sense, right, to start the season. But then when you start getting things like, in episode 1, Jaehaerys' death, that should have been a huge motivator for Alicent. And yes, she feels some guilt about that. She feels a bit of sadness. But none of that anger is really ever shown to, Rhaenyra, for instance. And so the big problem with season 2 comes in is it's just Alicent almost feels like she is just pitying herself. Because Jaehaerys' death, where it does evoke some sort of guilt and sadness from the character of Alicent, she feels guilty with sleeping with Cole. And I think some people get on the writing about, okay, well, Kristen Cole and Alicent being together, well, wasn't that Alicent's big stick in the whole last season about, stuff Rhaenyra was doing? Now she's doing the exact same thing. I don't mind that at all because I think that's very human, right? Alicent was so angry, so jealous of Rhaenyra because that's kind of the life she wanted to live. She wanted to be able to, go with the men that she wants to go with and do all these things. She wants to have some sort of type of freedom. And that's what they were kind of trying to do at the very end of the season, but it just fell flat. And so as we go with this character, the issue you run into right away is the core central theme of season 1 was that hatred between the two characters of Alicent and Rhaenyra and them growing apart. And then in season 2, you kind of destroy what could have been a magical moment with Alicent and Rhaenyra and their relationship. If you had just waited, let all the events play through, right? Because once Jaehaerys dies, any chance of peace that Alicent thought there could have been should have been over in her mind. Because now her family's been attacked. An innocent, the most probably innocent person in the entire green side of things just got killed, and savagely killed at that. Okay, and at this point, let's also remember, Alicent is a character that cares about her children, or at least shows it. She might not be a good mother, but she at least cares about her children. She was willing to try and kill Rhaenyra after Aemon's eye was taken in episode 7 of the first season. So it shows she does care about her children. She tries to reach out, tries to comfort at least some of her children, and Helena at least. And she seems to, like, care for Aegon. Like, even when we get to after Rook's Rest and all that stuff, she is constantly, it seems, by his bedside. So she does care about him. And she cares about Helena. She cares about Kristen Cole. She cares about her father. They still have a good relationship, even in this season, regardless of what happened, in season 1. They still had a pretty good relationship. Her and Gwaine seem to have a good relationship. She has a son that she hasn't met, but by all accounts seems to be a good a man, growing into a good man at least. And so you have episode 3 to me, which is just weird. It was kind of the first domino of screwing up Alicent's arc. Because yes, I do agree that Rhaenyra and Alicent needed to meet again. I'm not disarguing that at all. But the fact that it comes only 5 episodes after they departed from each other. Let the characters grow. Because when you have them not with each other for so long, right? When you have these brutal events happening where this person's losing this and this and this and that and all of that, it's going on. It makes the conflict when those two characters meet again even more intense. Because you, in your mind, think about any person that you maybe have had some sort of argument with. When you haven't seen that person for a long time, and you see them doing actions that are maybe harmful to you, you think about the rationale and you haven't talked to them, you start thinking about what they would have done and what their rationale was. Like, think about how much more powerful it would have been if we saw Alicent and Rhaenyra. Maybe their first time back was either at the end of this season, or the natural book point would have been in the next season, right? In the very beginning of season 3. How powerful that moment could have been, because you would have had 2 completely different characters at that point. And so the other domino to this that doesn't work to me is that Jaehaerys' death in the first episode of season 2 seems to play no role in Alicent as a character. Like, after episode 2, that's never thought of again. Even in the finale, when Rhaenyra brings up the whole idea of a son for a son, she doesn't even mention Jaehaerys. So the overall point that should have been the breaking for Alicent of any type of peace or anything like that should have been episode 2. Your grandson just got killed brutally. And for all you want to say about Alicent, how she is as a mother, you can't doubt that she cares about her family at least, right? Her whole motivation for why she put Aegon on the throne is because, well, Rhaenyra was going to kill her line, right? So, well, that's a lie she was being told by Otto anyway, and that's kind of proven to be maybe that's true type situation. And so you have this idea where Alicent never seems to, like, fall apart. She doesn't seem to break. Because I don't mind them going the route that Alicent is someone that is completely broken by the war and the conflict. So by the end of the war, she's just a hollow husk of herself, right? She's just deeply depressed and feels guilty about everything that she did that led to this war. Well, that only really happens after she loses power. Once Aemon takes her off the small council, that's when we see her going on camping trips, and it seems like this was a suicide attempt that she has, and all this stuff. You're now sitting here and you're going, okay, wait a minute. So is Alicent just upset because she has no power now? Is that really the thing that turned Alicent against her entire family? Was her being removed from the small council? And I know people might have other interpretations for the character. I'd love to hear what you guys think, because Alicent is, well, going into this season at least, was probably one of my favorite characters, even though I am Team Black. I think she was one of the best written of the first season. I just feel like this happened too quickly, in my opinion. I think we shouldn't have seen Alicent completely break down until the next season. I think this season they had the right idea of, if they're going to go like the sad route, she doesn't become more angry and spiteful towards Rhaenyra. then it should have been, I think, a little bit of a slower descent, right? You know, one thing after another. There's a certain moment that I think really would have triggered that well. But by the end of the finale, Alicent seems to be, I guess, so sad and desperate of wanting freedom and all this stuff. It comes from a place of, oh, Alicent's just sad she doesn't have her power anymore. Because she gives the effect that she doesn't care about her family. She doesn't care about her sons that are still alive. She doesn't care about Aegon, who she's shown that she cares about, at least as she's hovering over his bed in, you know, the last 4 episodes of the season. She doesn't, you know, care about her other son, Daeron, who is leading in the middle of a war right now. Like, I don't understand how she thinks giving up King's Landing is going to help the rest of her family. It just fundamentally doesn't make any sense. Otto Hightower, who she doesn't know is in prison at this point, but is someone that she still cares about, he would obviously be getting executed. He's probably enemy number 1 outside of maybe Aemond for the Blacks. Daemon's, like, literally worst enemy is Otto. One of the things I criticized season 1 for was sending Otto as a messenger to treat with Rhaenyra and Daemon when it seems almost obvious that Daemon would have killed Otto. And that should have been what happened based upon Otto or Daemon's character. And even Rhaenyra as well. But that's a whole nother topic. And so when you get this moment where Alicent is like, yeah, just take the city and all this stuff, and Rhaenyra flat out tells her, I still have to kill Aegon. You know, I still have to kill these people because they will be a challenge to my claim, which is completely true, right? Like, let's not take this back. Like, this is not Rhaenyra being cruel. If Rhaenyra takes the throne and she doesn't kill Aegon, there will always be people like Larys. There will be all these people trying to push them against Rhaenyra, plotting. It's the same idea of the Blackfires, right? Same exact idea. And so when you come to this moment and you're sitting here and you're going, what is motivating this character? And their idea is, well, she wants freedom and she just wants out of this war. And I don't actually think those are bad motivators, but given the context of what's happening, the way she's attaining those things, it doesn't make any sense. Like, freedom, for instance, is something that Alicent has been craving for even in season 1. That totally makes sense. She's a character that's felt like a caged woman, right? She is someone that is being forced to have Viserys' babies, you know, have sex with him, even though he's like a diseased like person at this point, has visible scarring on him and all this stuff. And, you know, she's basically being forced to be like Otto's puppet for like the first 5 episodes. Then she kind of comes into her own, but, you know, even then she still is kind of forced to do some of these actions. So she wants freedom. Okay, fine. I get that. But undercutting her entire family and everybody she cares about just so she can personally get like some sort of freedom is just weird to me. And then if you even look at the other one, it's like, well, she wants to be out of this war because of the carnage that's occurring. She doesn't have power. Okay, right? Like, that could have been something they could have achieved in this season if they had done it correctly. They could have had her more or less just like straight up say she is going out of the war and she just goes back to Old Town, right? After Aemon dismisses her from the small council, maybe you have her go to Old Town and whatever, right? Maybe they change that, you know, because in the book, something else happens. And so I won't talk about that, but there were so many more opportunities with the character of Alicent, given how interesting her motivations are as a character and how interesting the show has done her character up to like the back half of season 2. And they kind of just threw it all away. They threw it all away because they needed to have Rhaenyra and Alicent talk numerous times. If you would have asked me at the beginning, like right before season 2 started, that Alicent and Rhaenyra would meet not once, but twice in this season, I would have told you were smoking crack, especially in an 8-episode season. The characters just have no growth. They just met in episode 3. What changed from episode 4, 5, 6, and 7, where those two characters now need to be in the same room again? They just recycle the same dialogue, except they kind of flip because now Rhaenyra has the upper hand and Alicent doesn't. It's just, the character work was so inconsistent to me with that character in the season, and then they just completely destroyed her in really one scene. It's different than Daemon's, because Daemon, I think they literally killed his character in one scene, whereas Alicent, I feel like it was a slow descent into destruction, and then kind of episode 8 was just the nail in the coffin. So yeah, I went a little bit longer in this video about Alicent tonight because I don't think hers is as simple as Daemon's is. And you know, I got some pushback for the Daemon video. I will probably get pushback for this one as well. The Daemon one is just a lot more simple to explain because he has a very focused character arc of exactly where he is needing to go in that season. And then if you believe it or if you don't believe it, hinges on your interpretation of his arc in episode 8. So it's a lot more simple to talk about that. Alicent is not as simple because the character is much more complex than Daemon is in the show anyway. Daemon's way much more complex in the book than she is, but in the show, they have made Alicent a much better character and up until where we are talking about in this video. They did such a better job of her in season 1 than Daemon that you kind of have to like go through almost her entire character arc to understand why someone like me personally doesn't understand how we've gotten to the outcome of episode 8. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, just I ask you to be respectful, even if you disagree with me. Tell me, give me your reasoning. Why do you think Alicent is maybe fine still in the show, or why you think she's good? I do like to hear you guys' differing opinions because, I am just one person, and I think, especially in the finale, like my reviews and stuff, I came off very like angry and hostile because I'm very passionate about it. But I would like to hear, if you like the character, what is your rationale, or what makes you like the direction they've taken the character? I don't know if this one's going to be as divisive as the Daemon one. I've gotten a lot more comments about the Daemon thing than I thought I was going to, but who knows? Maybe you guys are a little bit more in agreement about Alicent. But thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you guys next one. Bye, guys.